Good week. This class is in honor of the merit of speedy recovery for Leah Mincha Bas Gittel. May she have a speedy recovery and health. This week's parsha is Parshas Toldos. It's a continuation of the previous week's. Speaking of Avram's life, this week discusses the life of his son Yitzchak. As the Torah begins, Elo Toldos Avram, Holy this Yitzchak. These are the children of Avram, and Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. So it's self-understood. What's this double mentioning that he is the son of Avram, and Avram gave birth to Isaac? Interesting to note, the rabbis tell us that they had two different types of service. Avraham had his service out of kindness, giving. He opened up a tent, he gave to everyone who was in need, food, water, shelter. In the desert, where anybody was passing by, he gave them all was needed. His whole being was kindness of giving. Isaac, on the other hand, was one who, as the Torah describes, not on the way of giving, but on the contrary, revealing the hidden gems, something which is hidden deeper inside. As there was once a story, I heard it from my father, heard it from Rabbi Groner, who was there at the time. It was the early years. The Rebbe was for bringing upstairs in the smalls in the synagogue in 770. And a Jew walked in, it was the middle of the week, he walked in, standing by the door. And after the Rebbe gave his first talk, they started singing. The Rebbe called him over. The Rebbe asked him, "What's your name?" He said, "His name is Isaac." The Rebbe asked him, "Do you know who Isaac was?" "Yes, certainly." He says, "That was one of our forefathers." The Rebbe asked him, "Do you know what his occupation was?" That he didn't know. So he said he doesn't know. So the Rebbe told him he dug wells. He went, "What? Digging? He dug wells?" And then the Rebbe explained to him what is the meaning of Isaac's occupation, so to speak, what he was involved with of digging wells. What is it when a person digs wells? There's sand, there's earth, there's stones along the way, and he has in his mind and his objective and his desire is to take that all away, to reveal deep down what's below it, to bring out at that time what was water. The person needs to have water, especially by a desert. Keeps in any city we know today needs to have water in order to live. And his job was to remove all those obstacles that may be in the way in order to be able to get to the depth of it and eventually bring up water for all to have pleasure from. This was the work of Isaac. At the end, the Rebbe tells him, "Your name is Isaac. You have to know. You have to get out. You'll go outside soon. You'll leave the Farbrengen. Your job is to be able to encourage others, the people who you meet, other Jews, they should put on tefillin." Again, this is a story from the 50s. And before there made an official Miftzah campaign of putting on tefillin with others after the time of the 6-Day War. But here, the Rebbe told him to do that. He says, "I don't do it myself." But the fact alone that you know that you're Isaac, this is your job, you have to be able to go and encourage by others to do it as well, this particular mitzvah, or any other mitzvahs. So the idea is of Isaac, he was represented, which is called in Kabbalistic terms, it's called Gevura, stringency. You have to go and to measure and to mark and to see exactly if it deserves or not deserves, in what way, and then to be able to pull out and bring out what is needed, the good that's hidden inside. This was the work of Isaac. Why was it say that he was the son of Abraham and Abraham gave birth to him? To know that it's not two types of service to God, a way of servicing two separate identities and two different ways, it's one or the other. That we have to know that Avram and Isaac, their job, what did they serve, how they have served God, was through their particular way of serving, either through love or through fear. And we need to have both. We can't have just one. And this was that says about Avram, that he was the one of kindness. He was able to go and bring out the world into the world, the knowledge of God through his kindness. Isaac was in a different way, and that was the way of gevura, of stringency, of sowing, of marking, seeing with measurement, everything was needed in its right term. When a person recognizes and sees this, we see the greatness of Isaac, to the extent that it says about Mashiach will come, will be Isaac, who will say, Ata Avinu, you are our father, which Isaac also comes to the word of tzchoik, of laughter, of enjoyment, of pleasure, and happiness, which that brings down all boundaries. How does that come about? Through this level of yira, of fear of God, and bring about God in this world through fear. Then we could come to have the ultimate level of serving God through fear, through the work that represents the work of Isaac, which he put himself entirely at the side. When a person has fear, he's not in existence that's accomplishing and doing anything. All what he's doing is fulfilling his master's needs. Like our sages tell us, Eved Melech, a servant of a king, is a king alone. He himself is a king. Why? Because the servant doesn't feel at all that he is something that he's accomplishing, he's doing, he's considered as if he's something. He feels his entire being is only the king. All his actions is the king's actions, not even his actions. Since he has that level by him, that he's entirely put aside, he doesn't have any his own identity involved. It's only for him fulfilling the needs of what the king wants. Then he himself comes to that level of a king as well. As the sages tell us, Melech, he himself becomes a king. This also brings us to what we say in the prayers every day by Shemona Esrei. We say to God, we say, Psach libi b'seresech. We ask God that he should open up our hearts, that we should be able to understand his wisdom, his Torah. But before that, in order to reach to that level of opening up our hearts to understand Hashem's wisdom in the Torah, we say v'nafshi ka'afar lakol tiyah, that my soul should be like sand to everybody. Everyone can step on it. I mean, he doesn't consider himself like who he is, and based on who he is, he needs everyone to give him the honor. No, he doesn't need the honor. He wants to be as if nothing. He doesn't have an existence. Once a person has that level of of nullification to the extent to fulfill everything which is needed by him, then he can come and can ask truthfully by Hashem that he should open up his heart as well, that he should be able to understand Hashem's Torah. When we know this and we understand to take this lesson of Isaac, yes, it's a harder level. It's not something that's revealed now in this time. It's something that will be ultimately, because today we cannot become nothing entirely to the extent that we're not in existence anymore. That will be when Mashiach will come, when we'll be able to recognize the truth of everything. Then we'll be able to see it in our true lives, how we'll be able to recognize that it says Yitzchak, Yud representing the beginning of a word, shows something which will be in the future. That means today we don't have it yet, but at least a little bit of it we need to have to begin our service to God. Has to have some form of a fear involved with it, that we recognize that we're doing it not out of my only enjoyment, personal enjoyment of pleasure to serve God, but it also has to be this concept of Yitzchak. It's interesting to note that Yitzchak's Parsha in the Torah is this one and only Parsha this week that we discuss of Parshas told us the life of Yitzchak.